We are here today to discuss criminal charges against Sarang Hospitality, LLC, doing business as the Royal Inn, along with owner Varsha Patel, manager Neelam Patel, and others. As you'll read in the indictment, and as we'll discuss today, the Royal Inn has been, for many years, a haven for drug sales and commercial sex transactions in the 27th Avenue corridor in Northwest Phoenix. Our goals in this case are threefold. First and foremost, to shut down the Royal Inn, which we are accomplishing today through a seizure order signed by a federal judge granting control to the Marshal Service. Second goal is to deter the individual criminal conduct alleged here, in particular the knowingly allowing the premises to be used for criminal activity. And finally, as always, we're here to protect victims, which may include the community at large, the schools nearby, and those involved in prostitution activities. Voy a resumir en español en vez de que tenemos aquí gente de la prensa hispana. Había sido que los tres de nosotros hoy hablamos en español si hay preguntas después. Hoy anunciaremos una acusación criminal contra un hospedaje específica, el Royal Inn, junto con su dueño, su gerente y otras personas. Este Royal Inn por muchos años ha sido un lugar por venta de drogas y de sexo comercial allá en el noroeste de Phoenix, cerca de la avenida 27. Tenemos tres metas en este caso. Cerrar las puertas del Royal Inn para que las ventas ilícitas paren inmediatamente. Es el primer meta aquí. Segundo, impedir la conducta alegada aquí, en particular, dando permiso para que personas utilicen el lugar por actividades ilícitas. Y finalmente, de proteger a víctimas, los que incluyen la comunidad alrededor del Royal Inn, los niños, quienes asisten en las escuelas cercanas, y personas vulnerables involucradas en prostitución. I'm very pleased here today at the local federal partnership to protect the city of Phoenix. You'll hear today also from Joe Perez, the SAC at the FBI here in Phoenix, along with Assistant Chief Ed DeCastro at the Phoenix Police Department. It's the HEAT unit at Phoenix that led the way here. That's the Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit, and Chief DeCastro has been a terrific strategist in helping us frame these issues as federal crimes and in nudging us to take action as soon as possible. Here's what we've got. Our federal jurisdiction in this case comes from two statutes. First is maintaining a drug-involved premises, which we sometimes call operating a drug house. This is knowingly leasing to persons who are selling drugs and aiding and abetting their efforts. Second is what we call the Travel Act, which here involves financial transactions as facilities of interstate commerce. That means mortgage payments on the property and other distribution of profits when the underlying money is earned through furthering specified criminal activities, which includes drug trafficking and prostitution activities. The indictment describes in detail the prior occasions in which the owner and operator of the Royal Inn have been advised of the dangerous activity on the premises, which is why we allege a knowing state of mind and an awareness of the crimes taking place around them. Separately, the indictment also alleges that owner Varsha Patel made false statements in applications for COVID relief funding in 2020 and 2021 by falsely claiming that the business was not involved in any illegal activity. And the indictment includes 4 individuals who allegedly sold drugs on the premises, including Leonardo Guerrero, the on-site maintenance man. Where we're at now, Mr. Guerrero is the only one of the individuals that have been arrested. We have arrest warrants pending on the others, including Varsha and Neelam Patel. The investigation continues. I can tell you that today, law enforcement agents served seizure warrants on some safe deposit boxes in the valley, and the total as of now is in excess of $450,000 in cash received from those safe deposit boxes. Let me finish by opening remarks the way I started, by focusing on potential victims. I want to be clear that Varsha and Neelam Patel are charged only with permitting drug dealing and prostitution activities on their premises, along, of course, with laundering the dirty money from those activities. They are not charged with trafficking, nor do we have any evidence to suggest that they were aware of any human trafficking at the Royal Inn, that is, commercial sex with minors or via force, fraud, or coercion. Our focus here today and in the days to come is to identify any sex workers located on the premises during the execution of the warrant, to listen to them, to investigate anyone who caused them harm, and to ensure referrals to services that can help them move forward. Let me now turn it over to the Special Agent in charge for the FBI, Joe Perez.
Excuse me, sir, could you please identify yourself?
Thank you, ma'am. I am Gary Restaino. I am the United States Attorney here in the District of Arizona.
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Jose Perez. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Phoenix Division. I'd like to begin by reiterating the critical importance of law enforcement collaboration and partnership for the FBI. These are two critical elements that we enjoy greatly here with our partners in the Phoenix Police Department. I'd also like to thank U.S. Attorney Restaino for his support in this investigation. Without these relationships, we would not be where we are today, which is the removal of a blight on the city, which is the Royal Inn Hotel. As the U.S. Attorney mentioned, these defendants are not charged with human trafficking. However, for several years, they were knowingly and willingly operating an establishment that facilitated the sexual exploitation of people and the sale of dangerous drugs in the community. They essentially operated a marketplace for illicit activity located steps away from a neighborhood where children were walking to school every morning. And they profited for years while turning a blind and uncaring eye to the families that live in that neighborhood. And again, that all stopped today with the removal of access to that location. The FBI's strategy to combat criminal organizations is to identify, disrupt, and dismantle an enterprise or any facilitators that are supporting that activity. What's happening today at the Royal Inn illustrates what we do in the FBI day in and day out with our task forces and our local and federal state partnerships around the country, like we do here in Phoenix. We do this every day to protect communities and protect vulnerable victims from being exploited, like in this case. The investigation is not over, as Mr. Restaino mentioned. We'll be taking a victim-centered approach to provide critical victim services to some of these sex workers that were identified in this case, in the hopes that we identify elements of human trafficking and exploitation. The numbers in this case are staggering. Over the course of the investigation over several years, we identified well over 1,000 victims ranging in age range, cultural backgrounds, or geographic makeup. To further this effort, we will rely heavily on our victim services specialists within the FBI and with our law enforcement partners to ensure we're providing the necessary assistance to any sex workers who are identified as victims of human trafficking, while we aggressively pursue any information that we develop to identify the traffickers themselves. Finally, I'd like to thank Chief DeCastro and also Chief Sullivan and his team for their support in this investigation. This is the culmination of several years of hard work by both the FBI and the Phoenix Police Department, and will hopefully provide some much-needed relief to the residents of this neighborhood. Thank you. Now, I'll briefly make some statements in Spanish as well before I turn it over to Chief DeCastro. So again, nuevamente, mi nombre es José Pérez. Soy el agente especial en cargo de la oficina del FBI aquí en Phoenix, en Arizona. Este caso es el resultado de varios años de investigación entre el FBI y el Departamento de Policía de Phoenix sobre una empresa criminal que poseía y operaba un hotel, el Royal Inn, como un mercado dedicado a las ventas de drogas ilegales y la explotación sexual de personas vulnerables. Este caso es un ejemplo de cómo el FBI dedica recursos para proteger a las comunidades de todos los países y para hacer que rinden cuentas quienes se benefician de las actividades ilícitas que plagan nuestras comunidades. Quiero agradecer subdirector de Castro, también el fiscal, señor Restaino, para el apoyo que nos han dado en este caso. Muchas gracias y ahora lo entrego al subdirector de Castro. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Andy Castro, Assistant Chief of Phoenix Police Department. Today I'm filled with pride as we reflect on the success of this long-term operation. This achievement is not just a testament to the hard work of our dedicated officers and detectives, the collaboration of the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Marshal's Office, but this is also a reflection of the trust and partnership we share with the citizens of Phoenix. Today is a victory for every person who lives, works, and goes to school in that area. I know this was a long process, and so I sincerely say thank you to every resident for their patience and tolerance. However, because of that, we were able to remove this prolific neighborhood problem instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it. Over the course of several years, while doing enforcement projects in the area, our Drug Enforcement and HEAT, our Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit, detectives had noticed an increase in drug sales, drug usage, and prostitution in the area. Once this was established, they started their crime suppression efforts to combat these crimes. With a strategic plan and strong commitment, the Cactus Park officers and Drug Enforcement Bureau detectives mobilized their resources and acted effectively with many arrests. Over time, the Royal Inn was found to be a major nexus for those incidents. It threatened the safety and security of the neighborhood. It was eventually determined we needed to include our federal partners to effect maximum justice for the community. And today demonstrates the success of that partnership. With that, I would like to thank SAC Perez and U.S. Attorney Restreno. With their collaboration and support, as well as the help with the U.S. Marshal's Office, we were able to permanently solve this issue. I also want to take a moment to specifically recognize the hard work and bravery of our Cactus Park officers and our drug enforcement and heat detectives who have tirelessly worked this area and on this problem. Their commitment to serving the community is unwavering. It is their diligent efforts that have led us to the moment of success. Lastly, I want to give a very special thank you to our community members for their support and cooperation. Your willingness to share information and work with us has been invaluable. We understand you had to endure all the madness from this hotel over the years, and my hope is that this will bring much needed relief for you and your families. So again, I say thank you for your patience as we work to shut down this neighborhood burden. Yet our work is not done yet. While we celebrate this achievement, we must remain vigilant. Crime prevention is an ongoing effort, and with the community's help, we will continue to seek innovative solutions, such as the Cactus Park's Real-Time Operations Center, to ensure the safety of our neighborhoods. Continue to call the police when you need us. Our patrol officers, our Drug Enforcement Bureau detectives, and our heat detectives will still be out there working on crime suppression projects to find victims of sex trafficking and stop the influx of drugs in the area. Together, we will carry on the mission of creating safe communities and protecting citizens from bad people. Thank you for your trust, your support, and for standing with us on this important mission. Thank you. Y puedo contestar preguntas después si ustedes quieren. Gracias.
Thanks, Chief DeCastro, and thanks, SAC Perez. We can now take questions related to this enforcement action against the Royal Inn.
Just to clarify
Sir.
on the people arrested, you spoke about Leonardo Guerrero.
I did?
How old is he? And we also mentioned several years. Do you know more so how many years it took for the arrest or for the situation to come to an end? How long was the investigation? En español, por favor, si puede. para
Oh,
Mauricio.
sí, podemos entonces hablar de español sobre este hombre Guerrero y también la duración de la investigación, ¿verdad? De Guerrero, yo no sé exactamente edad. Él fue el hombre de mantenimiento que vivía allí en el Royal Inn. Sobre la investigación, como los otros ya describieron, por varios años ya el Royal Inn fue un problema por la comunidad. Quiere decir que el departamento de Phoenix, la policía, ya respondió a varias llamadas, ¿verdad? Durante las últimas 2 años, ya nosotros como FBI y Phoenix, la policía de Phoenix, ya investigaron en manera más junto, más de completar y de unir las varias pruebas para asegurar una oportunidad de tomar una acción entera, ¿verdad? Una acción que quiere decir que al fin y al cabo vamos a agarrar el Royal Inn de las personas que estaban permitiendo un uso mal. Entonces, varios años más, de 2 años, los últimos 2 años por la investigación más entera. Quiero decir antes de que yo pido aporte del SAC y del jefe de Castro, nosotros solamente podemos hacer con la aporte de la comunidad. Cuando hablamos de información en un sistema de policía del siglo XXI, muchas veces hablamos de los números y cuántas veces hay un problema en un lugar, pero también necesitamos escuchar y oír de la comunidad, de sus problemas, de sus consejos para mejorar su comunidad. Agradezco mucho a la comunidad de Phoenix por aportar a nosotros durante los últimos 2 años y los anteriores. Chief? Mas?
Can I just clarify how many arrests total? Because you also spoke about the manager and the owner.
Una persona arrestada, los otros ya tenemos los órdenes de cateo.
Can you just say that in English? Just clarification on the last 3 people that you mentioned that were arrested, or I think 4 people. What charges they're facing, I guess, and their relationship to the motel.
I hope I wasn't speaking about 4 people being arrested, but their Spanish is better than mine. We've got 1 person arrested, Leonardo Guerrero, in the indictment, the maintenance man from the location. Nobody else has been arrested. There are arrest warrants pending for everybody else. To repeat in English, it was a large thanks to the community for the work that they have done in giving us data that we need in 21st century policing to help figure out which areas to respond to. And it's an acknowledgement that while this has been going on for more than 2 years, it's really these last 2 years that FBI and PPD together have tried to come up with a federal solution to the various discrete and independent calls for service that were made to that location.
Well, I think just to hammer on that, obviously, it hasn't talked to people there. It hasn't been a secret in the community what's going on in the hotel, right? And I know these investigations don't happen overnight. What does that process look like, getting it to a point where you can take action as all this activity is still going on?
Here I will turn it over to both Zach Perez and then to Chief DeCastro. It takes a lot of cooperation among our law enforcement partners. It is terrific in an area like Arizona to see the federal-local partnership. Joe?
Thank you, Gary. So, normally for the FBI, there's elements in this indictment that relate to prostitution, which is not something that federally we're going to investigate. But we always look for, when we're working side by side with our partners, where there's community impact, where there's really an area or an enterprise or a situation that's really detrimental to the environment, to the city, and that's the case in this hotel. So over the course of the investigation, I know the police department had been well aware, the community was well aware of it. Through just some due diligence and investigators where we identify where are the federal statutes, and without going into detail, I know the indictment will be released, but there's movement of activity, if you will, that goes into from one state to the other that allows kind of an effect, if you will, on things like interstate commerce or a movement that would allow the federal government to get involved, at which point the FBI is going to get involved. We do investigate human trafficking, as we mentioned, as the U.S. Attorney mentioned. At this point, that is not an element of this indictment. However, recognizing that sex work and human trafficking, there's obviously a correlation there. That's another reason why we want to continue to dig into this and identify this environment, this hotel clearly was facilitating activity for drug trafficking, for sex work, for prostitution. We want to identify what is the environment or the elements that brought some of the sex workers here. Is there human trafficking, and is there additional criminal enterprises or federal statutes that we can levy?
Speaking of additional criminal enterprises, that stretch, 27th Avenue, Indian School, North, has always been something of a problem. How difficult is it trying to exterminate that type of work, and how they start up and they come back and they start?
You are correct. That area is quite prolific with crime. However, we are doing a great job in reducing the amount of crime that we have there. One I had mentioned before with our real-time operations center. Using the technology that we're able to access has been a game changer for us, of being able to monitor crime, see crime, record crime, and actually make arrests because of those. So that's been helpful. We have a crime suppression project for that entire area that we've been focusing a lot of our manpower, resources, and again technology in that area to be able to reduce some of the crime that's been going on. This seizure today of the Royal Inn will be a huge contributor to being able to reduce the crime in that area, since that was a major hub of where a lot of things were happening. Crime is like squeezing water. It's going to go somewhere else. We just have to find where that next place is going to be, and we'll start looking at that place and attacking those places accordingly. In this case, we were able to leverage our federal partners and use some federal resources as far as laws to be able to go further than we normally could from the city. Because of the arrests that we were making, they were all municipal. But once we get to the federal level, it amps it up, and we're able to do what we did today, which was permanently shut down this location.
Some of the online videos, they referred to some of these girls as college girls.
Mhm.
Is there any possibility of that?
It's possible. I don't know every person that was photographed or that we've taken into custody or spoken to, but there's people from all walks of life. So there's going to be people that girls that are doing that for a multitude of reasons. Some of them could be in college, but I don't know for sure.
Sabemos que ese corredor, ese tramo de la avenida 27 ha sido un problema para la comunidad.
Ujú.
Las autoridades han presentado alguna medida preventiva porque sé que se han hablado de millones de dólares para combatir o hacerle frente precisamente a la delincuencia. ¿Podría reiterar o hablar acerca de estas medidas preventivas, algunos ejemplos?
La cosa más enfrente que tenemos es el Real-Time Operation Center. Entonces, la tecnología que nosotros tenemos, las cámaras, los license plate readers, todo esto, drones, todo eso podemos usar para combatir lo que está pasando en esta área. Podemos ver crímenes ocurriendo en real time para encontrar los sospechosos. Esto es la cosa más importante para nosotros ahorita. También teniendo oficiales para la área es importante. Estamos bajo 600 oficiales todavía, pero estamos tratando de poner más recursos en la área para tratar de encontrar los crímenes. Yes, ma'am.
What can you tell us about this morning's seizure? You know, what time your officers went there, kind of what it all entailed, what were they taking from the rooms, what did they find? What can you tell us about today?
That I will pass off to Joe here.
Sure. So logistically, we executed the arrest warrants and search warrants at around 6 a.m. at the location. Obviously, it involves a lot of planning with our partners, with the Phoenix Police Department and the FBI, Fire and Rescue, and additional folks that kind of go inherently into one of these types of operations. The goal there really is to, in a safe environment, make sure that we execute our authority under the warrants to locate and arrest the individuals who are wanted and search and take custody of that property, which is what we did. We did it with some of our tactical teams from the FBI, fortunately without incident. What we're looking for, obviously, of evidence that relate to the charges listed in the indictment and in some of the warrants, where we're looking for information related to some of the underlying acts, if you will, prostitution, profiting, that speak to the nature of what these defendants were doing at that location. And then we're also obviously aware and looking for additional crimes that might be occurring at that point that would rise to either a federal arrest or a state arrest as well.
Joe, let me just add
Please.
on that. One of the other things that will happen afterwards is the work that the Marshals Service is now doing to secure the location. And we anticipate that as of this afternoon, they should begin covering up doors and windows. I understand those should be metal coverings, putting a fence around the area, and ensuring some security, which could mean individual people out there or some kind of camera-based security, and that'll be in conjunction and coordination with the City of Phoenix to make sure that this does not go back to being a notorious market for drugs and sex. Going forward, this is the seizure part. Going forward, we will have the forfeiture proceedings, which can either occur in conjunction with the criminal proceedings, what we call criminal forfeiture, or it could occur in conjunction with a separate civil forfeiture proceeding, and that's when we will seek to have a court convert ownership from Serang Hospitality to the federal government and be able to move forward with that location for a better use. I think we've got time for one more question.
This guy
Sir?
owned quite a few properties. Was there any indication anything like this was happening in any other properties? And if so, were they raided and seized or?
So you've got different information than we do. We've got this particular individual as having one property. There are, we think, some familial connections connected to some others. This is the one that we are tracking that is open and notorious for the drug and prostitution use. Certainly, we ask anyone in the community, if you've got additional information on other properties, we want to know about it so that we can rescue additional victims. That's, I think, all we've got for today, everyone. Thanks very much for coming on this important topic.
Thank you.
You guys?
Gracias. Agente Pérez en español, just to explain just briefly, los $450,000 que fueron decomisados, ¿fueron en estos hoteles? O cómo fue el operativo? Sé que comenzó a las 6 de la mañana. En el micrófono, última pregunta, por favor.
Pues sé que el efectivo, cierto, se lo recuperaron del hotel. No sé específicamente, no tengo información en qué lugar ni de a dónde, de qué persona, y no quiero comentar algo que no tengo información específica, pero sí que encontramos efectivo y otros datos importantes para el caso en el hotel.
Thank you, everyone.
Gracias.